Okay, so hi everybody. Today is Wednesday, October 31st. Welcome to the K8s Infra working group meeting at our new time, which is 8:30 Pacific, 15:30 UTC. Thanks to Dims and Ehor for getting that doodle together. So on the agenda today, I just wanted to welcome any new members or attendees, but I feel like I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces here. And so then I wanted to cover action item review from our last meeting, followed by any open discussion topics that we have. So I can go first in terms of AI review. I did one of the things and I didn't do another one of the things. So the thing that I didn't do was get together with Ben the Elder and write a one-pager on how we're running our test infra clusters today. We really would like to actually document what is running where and what practices we're using that we like and we don't like as advice for this group to use. I don't have it. I also tried working on a charter to call this thing a formal working group instead of a team. I have all sorts of approvals and LGTMs. The link is in the meeting notes, but I will also paste it in chat. The TLDR there is the steering committee has concerns that the charter is almost too good. It looks a little too much like a SIG, and so it confuses or muddies the waters of what a working group is supposed to be. So I need to reword it to, I guess, delegate more sub-project creation. It seemed to hinge around sub-project creation because that made it sound like this working group owns code or owns efforts. It's more like we're going to go ask a SIG if they want to own this thing, but we do feel like we're responsible for staffing up the team and the processes to actually run these things. And ultimately, after this iteration, I'm just going to push through and suggest that, like, if you don't like it, we can turn into a SIG later, but let's get moving.
Yeah, do we have a SIG that officially owns the K8s.io repo wherein we have some amount of code and config?
I forget if it's Contribex or Arch. It's one of those two.
Okay.
I want to say it's Contribex under the guise of they own like friendly domains going to authoritative places that are meaningful to contributors.
Okay. Should probably get clarity on that, although I don't think it matters that much.
Yeah. So I'm going to thank you for taking notes, Nadir. I'm going to follow up on that before the end of the week and try and push that through. So the next outstanding item was Christoph is not here, but Tim, did he ever get in touch with you on writing some sort of skeleton doc on how we might want to administer clusters going forward?
Negative. I've not heard from Christoph in a couple of weeks, actually.
Okay.
No, so we did not get to that.
Okay. And then on the DNS effort, we were waiting to see if Hippie could dry run the DNS migration. And Hippie, you are here, so I was hoping you could speak to your progress on that today. You are muted at the moment.
Hello?
Yes.
I did go through and do some initial dry run efforts, and I was trying to, the deploys works, and I was trying to find a way to do some testing on that, maybe going through and looking at the data and doing queries. We were doing some stuff in Bash. I was trying to find a way to do some programmatic stuff, so I'll look at that again in the next week or two.
So I apologize. I didn't realize that you had that in flight. I have a PR open that adds a shell script. Actually, I think I assigned it to you that does the basically the shell loop for failure detection. If a push failed, then don't proceed. But if it didn't fail, push to the canary zone. I saw that you had created the canary zone. I think it was you.
That was me.
And So I wrote the script to wrap that up, but I left basically an empty test.sh, which the PR basically says, yeah, we need a real test here, and it's probably more than we can do in shell.
Yeah, that's kind of where I didn't speak to that. That's what I'm looking at, is filling in that, but with some code iterating over our input to do the query, make sure it's actually there.
Okay. Yeah, and then that'd be great if we could consume the input. I didn't even thought about it that way. That would be.
It's the validation, right? This is the did it do what it said it did on the 10.
Okay. Should I close my PR? Do you want to take my PR and run with it? Do you want to get my PR merged and then just iterate?
Merge and iterate, I think. I mean, it works and they're in fine for me. I'll do it though, so let's not close it yet. Let me take a look at that.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, and just so I understand, is this the PR you guys are talking about? I linked it in chat. The
Number
DNS
47?
add canary. Yeah.
I'm like Brian, I can remember PR numbers, but only if they're 2 digits. Oh, it's 147. Even that I got wrong.
Okay, so what can you sort of walk me through where we think we are in the roadmap towards migrating to this for DNS?
Here's my feeling. We have basically 3 things that I think we're missing. One is the test, so that we can do the canary push and make sure that everything passes. We could conceivably move forward without it, but I'd rather not. 2 is a swag at a billing report. It's going to be hard since we have no data. I looked at the data and it's $0 so far because we've served 58 DNS queries. But I would like to know how we're going to do transparency here. This being sort of the very first thing that we're going to start spending money on. I want to know where that money's going, and I want to be really clear that we can show people where it's going. And the third thing was, I guess alerts, but alerts don't matter for this because it's a hosted service. So it's really only, I think it's really only those 2 things. Is there anything else that people feel like we need to do before we actually flop it over to this service?
Well, where does this, sorry for asking stupid questions, where does this service run?
The cloud, Google Cloud DNS.
Okay. So I remember the phrase Octo DNS being thrown around earlier, right?
Octo DNS is a command line tool that syncs from our YAML in Git into GCE DNS.
So where is that syncing going to happen?
Today, that's happening manually. There's a script that is checked into that directory, the DNS directory, or at least will be in my PR, that runs against a locally compiled Docker image of OctoDNS. There's basically, you can run docker build dot and you get your image, and then you can run that to push from your local client up into the real DNS. It's not ideal, but until we actually have a cluster up that's running on a regular basis, I think it's fine. It's what we're doing for everything else.
Okay, so the idea would be instead of manually editing some fields in a console somewhere, the person now responsible for updating DNS would run this. Would they make PRs, or would they just run this script after somebody has PR'd in changes? That's like, I want to add a new...
Somebody PRs in changes? Exactly, you're right. If somebody sends a PR that says, I want to add a new name, or I want to update a text record or whatever, the small list of people who have push approval to the actual site, to the GCP project, sorry, it's still early, they would approve the PR, sync to head, and run the command against it. Sync a local command to head and run it.
Do we feel like we have that list of people?
We have a small list in the the Google groups for DNS admins. There's like 3 or 4 people who have volunteered to be doing that.
Okay.
I think that's sufficient for now.
Is Tim frozen for anybody else?
Need more, we can add more, but
okay.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you for like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh,
you froze for a while there, but I think you're like, we have people in a Google group. If we need more, we can add more. Okay. So
And probably concretely, I feel like filing an issue.
we have people in a Google group. We can add more.
yeah,
If we have a process whereby after the PR is in, we file an issue to get it pushed, that's probably a good way to ensure that that things don't fall through the cracks and people aren't.
Yeah, so that's all the boringness I guess I was trying to articulate is I think Tim's roadmap of we need three things is we need these three things in order to actually like be able to physically run the command. But I feel like there should be a little bit more in terms of docs or process for people to know how to poke somebody to update DNS.
I can do a PR for the doc for the process.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, you can throw it in the
be,
VNF directory or something.
Yeah, it'll basically be what you just described, which is PR a change and then file an issue to get the change pushed.
Yeah.
I mean, do we even need an issue? Like if we need is an owner's file. If the only people who can approve those changes are in the owner's file, those are the same people who can push. So like whoever approves your PR should be responsible for pushing it.
I agree.
Yeah, except for, I mean, I'm okay with that, except for I kind of feel like there's this weird synchronization thing where you could approve the PR, get it merged, and then get distracted and do something else and never actually push it. And so like having separate tracking for each is probably better.
Okay.
I don't really care.
Yeah, I don't really care either. Like I said, this is not a high request bandwidth thing.
If we just automated this, would we sidestep a lot of this? And we don't necessarily need a cluster to do that because we could use Cloud Build or something like that, Google Cloud Build or whatever we're calling it today.
We could, yes, if we want to automate it. I think we will have to decide in general what we want to use as automation. A lot of the stuff that we have today runs in GKE clusters because we have GKE clusters.
So I'm super on board.
We'd rather use them sort of trigger-based. Good.
I'd rather run with the use the crawl, walk, run approach. So we did something similar when we were moving to a PR-based workflow for adding new people to the GitHub org. Initially, we just had people file issues asking to be added, and then we would do the needful manually. And then we started making PRs and running the tool manually and closing the issue ourselves. And then eventually, when we got to a world where as soon as a PR merged, something ran as a post submit, we could start using the fixes keyword in the PR to close the issue when the PR merged. So I feel like maybe not even asking people to open up a PR, but just ask people to file issues, and then you're the one responsible for making the PR, running the change, doing the needful, and then closing the issue.
Sure, that's cool. Anyway, I think we've gone on long enough. I'll send a PR formalizing this, and everybody can comment.
Okay. Awesome. So that's everything that I had from action items from last meeting. Did anybody else have anything that they think I missed? All right. Then I punt it over to Justin.
Awesome. Yes. So, I mean, I have done a little prototyping on, I'm still trying to, the work that I'm trying to do is figuring out how we can do downloads of binary artifacts from ideally multiple locations, multiple mirrors, and basically have some sort of redirector service or some sort of way to enable people to download from them without having to be aware of all the mirrors. I've done a little very small prototype, which basically is a trivial like Go-based 302 redirector. Super MVP, but I figure it would make sense to actually get it put somewhere and start iterating on it and start moving towards where we want to go. Not least because I think it will drive a bunch of other things. Like we are a long way away from, like, the instructions are not going to be drop it into a Git repo or and off it goes, right? We have to set up DNS integration. We have to figure out how we're going to do TLS. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to like run it in a Kubernetes cluster or wherever we want to run it. So it is a sort of, we have to figure out where the code lives. So I wanted to sort of try to start the ball rolling with a more complicated, I guess, process than the ones that we're tackling so far, and hope that it will open up a bunch of avenues for progress.
Did you write down somewhere what you're trying to actually do? I remember seeing stuff from you, but I forget if it was shared with this group or if it was completed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in the, it should be, I'm just going to double, that is a great question. I'm going to double check that it should be in last week's or last meeting's agenda. Strawman proposal should be the doc.
All right, here it is.
I'm going to paste it in the Zoom notes chat. So I'm just, this is just the 302 bit of this, not the copy to mirrors bit, but obviously I'd like to do both.
Okay.
So it presupposes, I mean, the list of things that I think we need, and maybe I should break this down in open issues so we can track them. And if someone can tell me where to do that, that would be great. But buckets in at least GCS, but also S3, and having a bucket in Azure would be great as well. A place, some sort of DNS integration, sounds like that's happening. So we can have a DNS record that points to a Kubernetes cluster, which we need, a Kubernetes cluster to run services. We actually, we can just use Let's Encrypt, but some sort of acknowledgement that we want to use Let's Encrypt and not something else. And then some sort of, where do we put code? And how do we promote the code? How do we push the code into the Kubernetes cluster? So sort of similar process to what we talked about in terms of DNS.
And what is the heuristic you're using for where to redirect to?
I don't currently. MVP means one bucket. But yes, it will be, I mean, it's going to have to be, I think it's going to be based on some sort of hard-coded map of your source IP to try to figure out who it is. And then the other approach is later, so sort of to figure out where you're requesting from. The other approach is later to, and I'm going to look at what Apache does, because they have these things as well. The other approach is to also support additional DNS names. So you could specify, if we went with artifacts.k8s.io, you could do aws.artifacts.k8s.io, gcp.artifacts.k8s.io, azure.artifacts.k8s.io.
So my feeling is this sounds an awful lot like a SIG release sub-project in terms of if there's new code that needs to be written and a SIG that needs to own it. I think SIG release is all about where the bits land. And then if you need an umbrella issue to track this, I feel like we're free to use k8s.io as our umbrella issue repo. I guess the thing that I'm curious about is how much progress you can make before we get blocked yet again on the, boy, it would sure be nice if we had a cluster where we could run things. Because I now feel like myself, Ben, Tim, and Christoph are all we'll totally document the process for the policy for creating these clusters, but it's been 4 weeks and this is the third or fourth, gee, it would be nice if we had a cluster to run stuff thing.
Yeah, the only reason that I've not pushed ahead with that is I wanted to get the billing and other reporting stuff.
I agree, it's super important. Yeah.
And I just don't, I know that I have a tendency to get spread too thin if I let it. So I'm just trying not to get distracted from other things. DNS, if we can get DNS up in this cycle, the next 2 weeks, then I'm happy to look at turning up a cluster and actually starting stuff the cycle after that.
Yeah, I agree. Getting billing right is extremely important.
So I have a meta question if we're done with the billing cluster question. What Justin is describing basically sounds like a CDN. Why are we not just using a CDN?
So the real challenge is that most clouds have preferred pricing if you go direct to their storage thing, right? So Amazon has S3 and it's cheaper if you request direct from S3. So there's a money and a latency thing.
Okay, so this is just purely for the in-cloud part of the house.
Yeah, I mean.
Does that apply to whatever the CDN product? I haven't actually looked at this in Amazon or Azure to actually know if you get preferred pricing if you connect to an Azure CDN versus
I don't
S3.
believe we
Okay.
get preferred pricing.
Okay.
I looked at it. It was a little fuzzy in terms of, so Amazon's is called Cloud Front. I always get the CFs wrong, but Cloud Front. And I don't think they have preferred pricing. I don't know about Google's offering. And Google has this, or there was this new thing that was announced, which I think Azure and Google signed up to with the some sort of like preferred tiering or preferred peering. So maybe a CDN would work there. But there, I mean, this is, so partially it's that, but also the other thing is we can start to get stats. So if we want to know how many users are on a particular Kubernetes version, we can do that. It opens up a can of worms, I guess, in that like, who can see those stats, right? So, but it is also an opportunity to get stats.
Yeah, although presumably you could pull that from the CDN too. I don't know. I guess
Yeah,
I'm just
sure.
saying, like, let's just be careful before we build something that has been built and could be run as a hosted service. That's all I'm sort of trying to say.
I agree, and I don't want to reinvent all of the mechanisms that all the other mirroring systems in the world have implemented already.
Yeah.
I don't know of any mirroring system that does this though, that does like direct to S3 or direct to GCS redirects.
No, I think that's probably true.
There is definitely, I think, an Nginx module for doing GeoIP or something like that. So we should definitely not rebuild GeoIP.
I have no intention of rebuilding the database itself.
Yeah. Okay. I guess let's just keep that in mind.
Is there something I can do to help get a cluster up faster, Tim, I guess would be the question.
Help me get DNS up and out of the way. I mean,
Okay.
really, I don't mind if we want to turn up a cluster to start doing testing stuff right now. I just want to be wary that we don't burn away money that we want to spend on real things. And I want to be careful that we don't accidentally set up things that we end up keeping forever without having put some thought into them. That's what we end up with what we had before.
I mean, we can certainly do a cluster that we're only gonna, like the way we do alpha clusters in GKE, right? Where we're gonna turn it down after 30 days type thing.
Yeah.
And we know it's like $200 or whatever it is. Like we can say it's $200. We don't necessarily need to worry about it.
You just want the cluster to play with your redirector? I'm
saying like we it's the same logic as the alpha clusters. We know that we're going to want a cluster at some stage, but we also know that we're not fully baked on how it's going to work. We want to do these billing things and all these other things. Set it up. It'll last for 30 days and we'll tear it down. We've put a sort of rough cap on the cost.
Yes. I mean, if the point is just to get a place to play with the idea and iterate on it, we can also stick it in the existing clusters while you iterate on it. And I'm fine with that too. I don't care either way.
What are the existing clusters?
I think we have one or two. I know I have one that runs like K8s.io, right? That's just the URL redirector there. And it's a tiny little cluster, but it's got enough spare capacity that you can throw another Go program in there if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I have it running in like one of my test clusters as well, but I mean, it's more just like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out whether it's better to sort of get closer to where we want to be is what I'm trying to work towards.
Tim, the publishing bot is well understood problem, right? We know exactly what it takes. So
do we? I know nothing about it.
So yeah, there is some write-up already in one of the docs on what it takes to run and how they are running it. So it's well understood, and so the way it works is they are running the publishing bot inside a cluster inside Google, inside Red Hat, and what they are doing is they are creating an issue in KK repository with the output right now because there is just no other way for them to publish the logs. So and a few of us keep looking at the issue, see if the bot breaks, it reopens that issue, right? And then we go figure out what is wrong and then fix whatever is wrong, and then the bot is kicked up. The bot runs periodically, so when the next time it runs, it picks up the changes and does the same thing all over again. And that cycle is pretty much between Nikita, Stefan, and occasionally me. We know how that cycle works.
Okay. So
And
if we want to turn on a cluster, it's sort of the same things that we dealt with at the beginning of DNS, like who has access to it, how do you govern who has access to it, and what are the, like, what RBAC and whatever else do we need to set up to make it work? If somebody wants to start down that road, I guess I'm happy to unblock. If it's not me, then I'm fine to get out of the way. If it's me, then I want to serialize on DNS.
Okay, so I will come up with like exact proposal. These are the people, this is what we'll do, and this is how it's going to work.
Not so much these are the people, but like, how do we govern the people? Like, do they get added to a Google group, et cetera, right?
Okay, fine. I'll come up with a proposal and we can talk about it next time. No, we'll just do it over email. Let's do that.
So I also have a concern that we could trend towards having like a cluster per thing as opposed to having multiple things running on a cluster. I think that's like the question that we keep punting down the road. And I really like Justin's idea of could we have some like known cost clusters to toy around with an upfront expectation that they are temporary, that they will definitely, I'd love to put it in the hands of a machine, like definitely get deleted after N days.
Sure.
And that way we kind of like unblock people and let them explore and play around while we still have the authority, the ability, whatever, to say like, okay, it's cool that we figured out how to run publishing bot with a single Google group on a single cluster, but now that we've spent some time exploring, we've made up our mind that we'd rather have this cluster over here run the publishing bot and a couple other pieces of infrastructure. So we're tearing it all down, we're bringing it back up, like accepting that there's going to be some pain of iteration.
I'm fine.
That's fine. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. So we can do 2 experiments, one with the publishing bot and one with what Justin is proposing. And, we can have like a turn down in 30 days and then.
Okay, so Dims, you're going to take a wag at a doc on how to administer or set up these clusters. We can turn that maybe into a script that helps us make sure that we've got the same clusters. In the meantime, Justin, if you want to play with a cluster, we can set up an alpha cluster, which will self-implode after whatever it is, 30 days or something.
And we have the machine that will turn it down.
And literally, there's a machine that will blow it up. And we can even turn on preemptables so that we're not frittering money away on things that don't matter. Not that we don't have the money to spend on it, but the billing report will get noisy quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, it's like a half-page summary kind of thing with. Okay, sounds good.
Mostly, I'm specifically concerned about how do we make sure that the right people have the right access to the right things, especially if we're going to trend towards a cluster that runs more than one service. Then I just want to make sure that, add yourself to this Google group, which gets you access to this namespace via these RBAC rules, and here's the script that will turn these things up in a consistent way.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, Justin, do you feel like you have what you need to move forward?
I think I do, and certainly I like that we're making progress, and I think it's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Dims, I will reach out to you as well to see if we can collaborate a little bit on how to run the cluster and give no one any permissions to anything.
Yeah.
All right. Since we've been talking, something else popped up on the agenda, a proposal about an image repo. Who here added that and wants to talk to it?
Yeah, I added that. This showed up in the email from MQMetag a few days ago. I had forgotten to add it to the agenda. Sorry about that. So it basically, there are at least 5-6 requests that have come so far about uploading images. And I think we can start down that road as well. So Manjunath wrote up, what does the image look like? And it needs manifests, it needs like a structure in the name and things like that. So that's a document. What we have to figure out is how does this relate to the promoter KEP?
Where's that document?
I posted the link to the docket. I posted a link in chat.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then here is the promoter KEP.
Right. So we still have a little bit more thing to do here, but then we have people banging on our door already for hosting images.
So I once again feel like billing and answering the single line authorization should be added for a single team member or team based on the requirement. I feel like that's the devil in the details portion of this.
Right, Aaron. I was also thinking about one more idea in this. For example, if you take how Tim is doing the core DNS merges, right? So basically what they're doing is they're publishing to quay.io, and then they give you a script, and then Tim basically runs the script, which pulls in the images to our repositories. So if we do something like that, but a bot does that work, then we don't even have to give permissions to anyone.
That's right.
So if we can drive it off a YAML file and people create a PR against the YAML file saying this is the source, this is the destination, and these are the list of images, and then the PR gets merged, a bot automatically goes and syncs it all up. This way we know who asked for it, where is the source of the image, and and in the future we could even add a capability where if you remove something from the file, it goes and cleans up the image repository too. So that way we don't have the problem that we have currently, where we have thousands of images and we have no idea which ones are being used and which ones are not being used.
So I haven't looked at this doc yet. If it came through, I apologize. I didn't see it before. I will take a look at it and throw my notes in there about sort of where we are today. The open question that I have is about the pre-production staging area. I had been working on the assumption that we would want one pre-production staging area for all of K8s, and we would have to give trusted people from each sub-project the ability to push to that repository. I haven't really dug into the access controls that GCR offers, but my understanding is it's not very fine-grained. And so maybe we actually do want to be able to pull from arbitrary staging areas and synchronize those. So I think that's really the discussion there. And then it comes back to the same thing of like, let's get a billing report set up. And honestly, I think this one will be easy. Like this was the motivator for a lot of this work. So then we have a promoter internally that we need to just clean up to be able to publish. And we have a YAML file that has a format that already works. So also, I was kind of waiting for Linus to get back from vacation, who wrote our internal promoter. He's back as of this week. So I can actually drag him maybe to the next meeting here.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Is there anything we can do before the next meeting? Because that's 2 weeks away.
I mean, I need to take a look at the doc. And okay. I don't know, does the doc address the like one staging versus multiple staging?
No, it doesn't, because we have the promoter kept. So I don't think Manjunath was trying to subsume the work from the promoter cap.
So I think that's the conversation to have. Like, is the access control for one shared staging area going to be good enough or not? Aaron, okay. You had something.
Yeah, I think you answered my question there, because to state this from like a maintainer perspective, like Google's given all this money to the CNCF. Why can't I just push to GCR? Like, isn't the CNCF paying for GCR access right now? Come on, guys, give me an account. And if you're saying we want to give you an account to a staging area, but we need to make sure that random developer X from some other subproject doesn't squash your images. All right. So yeah, because that's what I feel like is the clamoring at the gates is all about. Is look, guys, I just want to push my images someplace.
Yes, we did all the pre-work for this. Most of the repositories now, all their make files and whatever, push to staging-k8s.gcr.io, which was the assumption was that we would have sort of subdirectories under there and people would be able to push to project-specific subdirectories. But it turns out that I don't think the GCR permissions are able to represent that, unfortunately. So we have to decide whether that's sort of good enough by convention because, we're giving you a directory and you shouldn't be pushing anything outside of your own staging directory. And at the end of the day, it's just staging. It's not that huge of a deal. Or do we actually create separate GCR repos for each sub-project, or do we just say we'll pull it from wherever you're hosting, whether that's Docker Hub or Quay or whatever? I don't like the latter. Sorry, Hippie, go ahead.
Rather than imposing a policy or trying to put restrictions on there, we could monitor it and have an approved list. And when something happens, that's an alert. And we need to go like, hey, don't do that, and fix it so that it doesn't flow through staging into the places.
I mean, nothing should auto flip from staging to production ever. There's only the end result is there's a Git file that derives what is in the production repo, and that's it, and it's by hash. So I'm not worried about the staging or the production. I'm only worried about intentionally or unintentionally people removing or overwriting an image tag for something that they didn't intend to in staging, which would potentially impact tests, but shouldn't impact production at all because all the copies are done by hash.
Okay, so I feel like, I feel like those three different alternatives you rattled off for the level of granularity required for staging, that's what I think we should
I agree.
Aim to have answered before the next meeting.
Dims, if you want to drive on this, we can go back to the promoter cap and have this topic in there. I'm
like hesitating a little bit because I don't know enough about how the GCR works.
Javier knows how GCR works, and I think Javier may still be on vacation, but Linus is back, so we can get them to sort of weigh in and get the discussion going there.
Okay, fine. Sign me up for that.
Sorry. I was just going to ask, is our ideal state, assuming that we get permissions to work, that we all do push to one shared GCR bucket, or is our ideal state that we have per project GCRs?
I think the ideal state would be one shared GCR bucket with one GCR name with subdirectories with individual access control. I'm not.
Okay, so how about I have a separate meeting scheduled for later this week, giving everybody enough time to go through what we have right now. I'll send out an email. So it's Javier, Linus, M. Kumatag, Tim, and me.
Okay. I may or may not be able to attend, but I don't think
I'll mark you optional.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else today?
What is mute even? Yeah, thanks. Thanks for putting that on the agenda, Dims. I think that was worthwhile discussion. I don't see anything else on the agenda, and I'm happy to call it here unless anybody else has anything pressing. Cool. So, assuming I do get the charter merged, I kind of want to rename some things to match the fact that this is a working group instead of a team, instead of K8s Infra team, WG K8s Infra, all that crap. But I'll email out about that when we get there.
Okay. Does that involve changing all the Google groups too?
Yeah, some of them. Maybe just the public-facing one. Just anyway, I'll follow up offline.
This is why I have been slow tracking doing a whole bunch of parallel efforts, because right now we have two groups that we need to rename, the public one and the DNS admin one. I can live with two. I would be unhappy if it was 20.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to push forward on this.
Yeah, let's get this one through by the time we meet next.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah. If you're going to rename them, let me know, and I will, or you can change the project access control tokens and stuff.
All right. I will definitely ping you if I get there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
20 extra minutes, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Ooh, come on, put the hood back up, man. It's great.
Tim, are you going to dress up for Halloween?
Nope.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm wearing my day-to-day clothes.
Awesome. Later.
See you guys.
Bye.